You're now listening to All Hog Sports, covering all Arkansas Razorback sports, such as football, basketball, baseball, and much more. Now, here's your host for today's show, Sam Stimpson.
Arkansas lost a tough one at Mizzou, 50-48. It was a hard-fought loss for the Razorbacks. I'll cover it all in today's episode, but if you like what you're hearing on today's show, please follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at All Hog Sports Pod. And please share the podcast and leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening to.
Now, for the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Late Friday night, some reports started to come out saying that Felipe Franks was dealing with a rib injury. The big question was it enough that it's going to hold him out to play. Well, he warmed up during the, preparation for the game on the field, and it looked like he was going to try to start and see what he can do. Well, KJ Jefferson actually got the starting line. Before I talk about how well he played, the redshirt freshman, props to the team for holding this information. Mizzou obviously probably prepared for Felipe Franks. So for the team to hold that information away from the other teams in the SEC, the media, it's just really impressive to be able to do that. So the other team, isn't preparing off of KJ's film from last year. So I just wanted to throw that out there, and I thought the team did really well on, holding in and all that, because it shocked everyone when KJ started. Even the TV announcers didn't know, and they talked to Franks and figured that he was going to play. But I really liked what I saw from KJ Jefferson. He showed some glimpses of that last year when he was starting in 2019. However, he looked really good. He was a pretty good dual-threat guy. He had 274 yards in the air on 18 completions out of 33 attempts, and 3 touchdowns, 13 carries for 32 yards. And he played really well for the first time he started this season so far. And he's got an arm, too. If you look at one of the big touchdowns, 63 yards to Treylon Burks, he threw it like 50-plus yards down the field, standing on just 2 feet. And for the Razorback program, a big question was, going into the 2021 season, what's the quarterback room going to look like? People were scared because might lose Felipe Franks. That's a discussion that is saved for later. So it's either going to be KJ Jefferson, Malik Hornsby, Lucas Coley, or Landon Rogers. Coley and Rogers are 2021 commits. And now maybe Franks will come back. Who knows? That's a whole nother time, and I'm sure that will bring itself on whether he returns or not. It's totally his decision to make what's best for him in his future. We don't know that yet now. But regardless of what happens with Franks, I feel really good about the future of this football program based off of what I saw from KJ Jefferson against Mizzou. Anytime that you have a redshirt freshman have 274 yards, 3 touchdowns, and run this Briles offense really efficient and help the team put up 48 points is impressive. Now, putting up 48 points should win you a football game realistically, but when the defense lets up 50, that's just really difficult to do. So many quarterback depth options going into the Alabama game, going into a potential bowl game. That will be a question that we will ask ourselves each week because of the show that KJ Jefferson put on this game. Great stuff I saw from him, but another guy who stepped up into a role is Treylon Smith. Obviously, Rakeem Boyd opted out of the football season earlier this week, and Treylon Smith became the number 1 back. Smith stepped in with 26 carries, 172 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's a quicker back and more of an explosive runner. So he's able to get around and, be quick and kind of run that Briles offense more effectively. Give credit to the offensive line, though. The offensive line had a very, very good game. You look at some of the offensive line work from around the season, there's games where you were just getting bullied, like A&M, Florida, a little bit of the first half of Tennessee game. The offensive line held its ground for KJ Jefferson, made it easier for him, and then even more importantly, held its ground for Smith. Obviously, we have 2 100-yard rushing games. That's Boyd's with 100 yards against A&M exactly, and then Smith with 172. So for Smith to step up into this role when Boyd opts out is just really good and shows you that next-up mentality that is existing inside this Razorback program as we have opt-outs from cornerbacks and things like that. Smith really impressed me on that Mizzou game. Definitely a really positive to take out of that one. Offensively, everyone really played good. You look at Treylon Burks, 10 catches, 216 yards, 1 touchdown, 68-yard touchdown on a dime from KJ Jefferson. And that KJ Burks connection is already here. And it was only December of 2020. Something's going to happen next year and however long Burks is on this team, because there's no doubt that Burks will be playing on Sundays. I guarantee you NFL scouts already have their name in their books for the 2022 NFL Draft should he enter that. He is that talented of a wide receiver and made so many athletic catches for the Razorbacks. Connection's already there. Can't wait to see that develop in the offseason, depending on what happens, obviously. But something from the offense that I guess a little bit concerned me, Smith had 2 late fumbles, but he recovered those. So to have the awareness to say, oops, I dropped it, get the ball back, is good. I really wouldn't take it too concerned, though, as we were running the ball a ton with 26 carries, especially late in the game when we had a bigger lead that eventually was blown. Great stuff from the offense. Looking forward carrying into the 2021-2022 seasons. It's going to be awesome, and I think we may have to throw a little bit more money at Bryles. Obviously, he's on a 1-year deal, so we're going to have to pay him again regardless. Feel like we're going to give him another shot, though. I really have been impressed by what he has done, especially late this season when we've had all of the guys back. And I feel like, obviously, the LSU game was a fluke compared to all the other ones. Bryles, though, really impressed me here on this game. 500-plus total yards on offense. Now, I should win you a game, but your defense lets up 653 total yards. And so many yards led up to the true freshman Connor Bazelak. And so many yards are led up to the freshman Connor Bazelak. And he's obviously a really good quarterback. I'm not going to put that past him. Great guy. And I feel like the matchup of KJ Jefferson versus Connor Bazelak is the first of many that we saw this year. I mean, obviously, you look at the Razorbacks in 2014, 2016, and now in 2018. Each time we played at Mizzou, we've blown a fourth quarter lead. And that's just really rough. And you look at the fourth quarter and the second half as a whole, and when did things start to get bad? Well, we lost Grant Morgan due to injury. If you don't know, Grant Morgan is a linebacker who's usually in the middle, and he sets up a lot of the defensive guys, especially linebackers, corners, stuff like that. We lost him due to injury, and we just looked completely lost. 3 touchdowns and 2 field goals led up during the third quarter. 27 points there for Mizzou, allowed him to win 50-48. And this is another example of we lose a defensive leader and we lost the game. After Jalen Catalan was thrown out of the LSU game, the whole entire defensive backfield had no clue what to do. And we lost that game because of that. LSU just kept throwing the ball. It's difficult. A lot of Razorback fans are going to blame Odom defensive schemes, things like that. And the depth isn't there. The experience isn't there. They don't know how to close out games. This Razorback team hasn't been able to do that this year. We have 3 games of 1 score or less where we lost. Now, I'm not saying that is something that is on a certain guy, because it's not at all. It's a team sport. I think the ability to close those games, though, is going to be brought next year. You got to give it time. Everything is really weird with COVID. You have guys being quarantined, they're out of practice. You have guys who, false positives, things like that. It's a really weird season. This team's going to learn how to close games, though. I feel like going into next year, we have a lot of those one-score games that Arkansas will come out on top. Because if you realistically look at it, if we close out LSU, Missouri, Auburn, I know we got screwed at Auburn, but just putting it in here because that's what the book says, we're 6-4. So I think this team is going to learn how to close games. We couldn't do under Burt. A lot of those players are still here. We couldn't do it under Chad, or we just got blown out. It's going to take a while. We're going to have experience and depth, so when one guy gets injured, or one guy, is getting picked on, we know where to flex safeties, things like that. It's going to take time, experience, and the coaches to get their players' records into the system. So you just got to be patient here. I think it will come time, though, that Arkansas is on the top of these close games. And something I saw is teams were picking on our cornerbacks, especially the walk-on Hunter Clark, who has had his ups and downs during the season. And I just hate when people blame Clark for this. Obviously, he had a great game against Ole Miss, and that warranted his starting position. Now, obviously, after you got a starting position, Jerry Jacobs opted out of the season to prepare for the NFL draft. Now, for Jacobs, is he going to get drafted or not? Whatever, right? That's a whole nother story. But you cannot blame the guy. He probably took special teams or scout team or third team defensive reps all season. And then by the midseason, he's our starting corner. Obviously, he wasn't developed under Chad. I don't think any of these guys were. I mean, you look at what Chad Morris did. He brought in recruits and just said, all right, go on the field, have fun. You look at the guys come off the field under the Chad Morris era, and they just kind of sat on the bench and said, okay, coaches didn't do anything. It was atrocious. We finally have coaches, and we have a guy like Clark, hop into a really good starting role and then isn't playing too well. You can't blame him, though. He was thrown into a really bad position after Meckelin opted out of the season. Jacobs opted out of the season. Now, I'm really excited to see what he can do, though. He's going to have a whole summer camp of coaching from Odom, from Coach Carter. He's going to get those reps. I think he's going to come back better than ever. Do not give up on him. He is talented, and he will be better in the future. His ceiling is really high, as we've seen against Ole Miss. Sure, is it not perfect right now? Yeah. Give it time, like what I saw from him earlier in the season, and I think we're going to see some more of that after he gets more experience in the offseason. It's not the guy's fault, though. He was thrown into a situation where he is a starting corner in the SEC after being a walk-on and probably didn't take much defensive reps. Got to give credit to him for doing that. An SEC schedule, though, is long. It's difficult. It's hard to play 4 quarters of football after you've been playing for 8 weeks. This team was fatigued towards the end of the game. We were getting ran all over by Larry Roundtree, who had 200-plus total yards. Mizzou's guys, there's so many of them that just sub into the game, and Drinkwitz, puts this power spread and has so many guys go in motion. It got us on defense, and obviously next year we're going to have tape. You want to study that all in all. I'll get to that later in a year or so. But obviously, our SEC schedules are tough. Our players were getting fatigued, tired, injured, and it got to the point where we just took a beating, and the opportunity wasn't there for us anymore, and we lost the game on defense. That's just as simple as it is. You can't give up 50 and win games in the SEC. That's near impossible. Maybe it was the Big 12. It could have worked. Now, special teams woes continued for the Razorbacks. And this time, it was kicking on extra points. You look at the season throughout. Punting was extremely difficult for us. Reed Bauer, though, has become our number 1 punter, is averaging 40-plus yards a punt. Great stuff from him. Give credit to him being the third-string guy and now starting in the SEC and performing really well. Kickoffs. Vito Carluso has done a tremendous job for the Razorbacks every time, kicking it out of the back of the end zone. Impressive stuff there. However, extra points and field goal kicking hasn't been well for the Razorbacks. Now, you can decide who to blame for that. That's not what we're here for. This is just how I feel. Scott Fountain is a great special teams coordinator. Sure, has he had a couple times where special teams haven't been great in this season? Sure. But you look at punting. We struggled at punting a ton. We finally nail it. Punting is near perfect for the Razorbacks. We struggle with kickoffs. Kickoffs are near perfect for the Razorbacks. We struggle with field goal kicking. Still have to work on that. And whether that is a problem with personnel, blocking, everything, you can put it into consideration, the holder, the snapper. But what I saw from him, besides the field goals, I liked what I saw from Fountain. And I think people have to give it time. People are saying to fire him, that doesn't make any sense. He's a talented special teams coordinator. If you look at the Iron Bowl, he was the guy who sent the kick 6 returner back. He's a smart special teams coordinator. Punting has got better as the season went forward. No one's really talking about it because that's what you expect. Fair, whatever. Kicking off of kickoffs has got 100% way better. Think we're going to see that with extra point kicking and field goal. Got to give him some time. And obviously you have a All-American kicker, Cameron Little, coming into the program. He will enroll early. Got to give him time. Be patient.